We're talking about the Aawks Aiwass split coming up August 25th. It's called the Eastern Scrolls. And this is going to be our interview portion of the Fuzz Club episode. So, how does it feel to be on the other side of the Fuzz Club, everybody?
This is a little weird.
Very alien.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely unique.
Yeah. Well, I just checked out your podcast with Pat at Monster Riff, and I got all sorts of information from him about this album. So, to avoid just regurgitating a lot of that information, I'm challenging you guys to look at this as maybe less public facing and more like Fuzz Club facing. A lot of the episodes that we've done on the Fuzz Club, we've gotten videos from different bands, and we talked about how much they really helped listen to the album. Just recently, we listened to Spotlights, and they kind of talked about the drum sound and the recording process and the bass sound. And I think it helped us all kind of go back to that album and listen to it in a different way. And we had a different appreciation for it. So maybe while we're talking about the album a little bit, we can think of it that way as more like Fuzz Club facing, and it'll help them kind of dissect the album as we talk about it in that episode and talk shit about everything on the album. So first thing, I want to read just a little bit about the album as I understood it, and you can kind of expound on it a little bit. So this split is a concept album that explores the life and legend of Russian mystic Madame Helena Blavatsky, a woman who enjoyed a diverse career as a circus horse rider, professional pianist, a businesswoman, spiritualist. Blavatsky is best known as one of the founders of Theosophy, a spiritual movement based in the ancient tradition of occultism, and the esoteric doctrines of Hermetism and Neoplatonism.
Yep.
I understood some of those words. So if you want to expound on any of that about Blavatsky or how that came about as the concept, that would be helpful.
I think the easiest place to start is really just that one of her biggest goals and why she is famous is because she brought together Eastern and Western philosophies, religions, ideas, and synthesized them together. If you look at Blavatsky's life and text, she was well traveled, she was well read. You know, she started reading at an extremely young age. And so what you get is really someone trying to come up with a singular universal religion, way of thought, way of being. Whereas so many different ideas, whether in the occult, in philosophy, or in religion, there's a lot of divisiveness and saying we are not that. Blavatsky was saying we are all of that. So that's kind of the idiot's guide to her ideas.
I know you and I, and probably you and a lot of people have talked about Crowley a little bit, but he's looked at in a certain light as being kind of like this dark, like creature in all of this kind of stuff. How is Helena Blavatsky viewed? Is she a good guy? Is she a villain? Is she, too dark? Is she evil? Is she good? Like what's the spin on her?
I think it depends on your perspective of her ideas. If you're an evangelical Christian, you're probably going to find Blavatsky to be pretty off-putting. But like Gandhi was an early kind of acolyte of hers for a while before he kind of did his own thing.
Oh, interesting.
The Theosophical Society was very popular in India because it had so many Hindu ideas, but it was bringing, kind of modernization, quote unquote modernization, into India around the same time of as they were working towards independence. So one of the things you have to really consider is that Blavatsky is not, I wouldn't call her like a left-hand path magician like Crowley or LaVey, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call her a right-hand path magician like, Wicca or the Golden Dawn, for example. She's a little just straight down the middle. It's more of like, here are the ideas. Here's what I think. Do with it what you will.
So I heard you both kind of talk about the subject matter with Pat a little bit, and you were reading a book and shared it with Aawks and whatnot. But aside from just how it happened, why write an album based on Blavatsky?
I was really interested immediately it was interesting that Blake came with such information and ideas. And once they started talking about it and I took a little interested look into it, that kind of almost a strong feminine role of her way back in the 1800s, it just really, I hooked onto that. And I really tried my best that when playing this song, I was kind of giving it my all with no fucks given, the kind of way she might have given her ideas and her belief system with no fucks given. There was no way she was not going to believe what she believed or what she wanted to deliver. And so that's how I delivered the song in the same path.
So what do you think that you wanted to accomplish with this split in regards to like the subject matter, I guess, but also just in terms of like why make a split together? You know, what did you want to put out there to the world that you haven't put out in your own music or about to put out in your own music in the next year or two or whatever?
For me, it was just to do it. I mean, so many bands I'm into have done it, and it seemed like a really cool concept to join forces with another band of like mind. And I'm all about inclusiveness. I love community. I love like just gathering and being around other people that that I jive with, and sometimes that I don't even jive with. Just like being around people, man. I like learning and observing and all that kind of stuff. So to me, it was a cool opportunity because we kind of met Blake through our first album, and we hit it off really quickly, and we proposed it to him, and he accepted, thankfully, and yeah, it happened.
I always find the collaborative process to be pretty enjoyable. I mean, as someone that makes art and things, just creative things, like there's a part of you that wants to do stuff on your own because it's your vision and your art and all that kind of stuff. But there's something special about doing a collaborative thing too. You learn something from it, you get better, you take things from other people, whatever. So how collaborative was this split? Was it sharing ideas back and forth more than just the subject of Blavatsky? Was it sharing, trying to collaborate on the music? I know you guys are in very different parts of the world, but how collaborative was the process?
I think that kind of goes down to just like the friendship, especially between the three of us, of, like they're kind of two of my people that I'll be like, hey, I don't know whether this is garbage. Let me know. And so, I'm a little bit more of I don't really care about the sanctity of the song per se. I think that songs are innately social. So I definitely was like, hey, I need help with this. Tell me whether I'm on the right path. The song that you hear on the split is actually the second song that I did because I had a file get corrupted with very little time to go before we had to start the mixing and mastering process. So that was fun. But yeah, I mean, Chris and Randy are always a part of my musical process in terms of how I decide whether something's working. So this was just like, as opposed to me being like, hey, I'm thinking about putting this, on something that I'm releasing, through King Volume. It was like, what do you think about doing this together?
How did that collaboration affect the songwriting? I mean, was Aawks trying to bring out the Aiwass in the band? Was Aiwass trying to bring out the Aawks in their music? Or was this like a true split where it's like we're talking about the same thing, but the music does not overlap anywhere?
I get that little,
how you wrote the songs?
A little bit of what you said there about Aawks trying to maybe not write an Aiwass song, but write something that would be cohesive with Aiwass.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, just what's indicative of the world, the musical world right now, and technology is like we have access to so much music all the time. So never in my life have I listened to so much music for so little time. So I'm listening to, 3 bands in 3 days, and then the next 3 days I'm listening to 4 other bands in the next 3 days, and I never get back to those 3 original bands unless something really, really sticks. So at the time I was into some bands that kind of were influencing the sounds that came out. And yeah, it's definitely different than Heavy on the Cosmic, our first album. And it's way different than what's going to be coming out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool, you know, given that we don't have to go into a professional studio to record, and you know, the ease of doing things with technology really allows us to kind of explore different sounds in a way that I don't think has ever really been available to people in the past, unless you had millions of dollars, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's really fun with this split was, and I don't think we've mentioned it yet, was that there was a challenge aspect. There was a challenge in when Blake brought the actual theme to us, because Aawks songs comes from that brain. I don't know where, how, what, or why. There is some sort of universal highway of sounds going through there. So the theme was a challenge. And then it was also a challenge that we started off in the idea that it was going to be a shorter song, a 7-inch, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
And then it kept expanding. And do you think we could keep going? How long do you think we can go? What do you think we can do? 45 RPM? Ooh, let's play with it. Let's have some fun. And so there was a challenge at every little turn, but we had a lot of fun exploring those challenges together in that collaborative effort to create what is now being put out into the world. And yeah, it was a fun challenge. And I really...
Like, how do you feel knowing that Aawks wrote a longer song than you?
Guess I got to step it up.
To be fair, we had a lot more people involved in the production of the song. Like that whole inclusiveness thing, I try to pull in as many people as possible for every song that I do. So we had Dan Allen from Indian Handcrafts do some vocals. We had Claire Fitzgerald, who did some vocals on the first album, and then we had Roberto, do some some violin on the album, or on the song. Sorry. So we just kept keeping, you know, more and more on the song until it reached its conclusion. And I mean, it's probably one of those things that we could just keep continuing to write on, or become to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I recorded my part of the split after I'd finished my second album, and so it's going to reflect a lot of what you're going to hear from that. So if you're expecting to hear like the Wayward Gods sound, you're not really going to hear that. It's a different vibe, it's a different feel, it's a different sound. This differs from my second album that's coming out this fall, in that I felt like I was influenced by Aawks to a certain extent, in that I was like, let's challenge myself to be I've always had some psychedelic elements to my music, especially in the vocals. But I moved the psychedelic elements from just having effects on the vocals to an extended bridge that's probably the most psychedelic thing I've done so far. So it kind of, I was challenging myself in that I knew that they were like, let's bring in some different elements. Let's challenge ourselves to write a longer song. I would say it's maybe the heaviest Aawks song, maybe.
I think so.
I think there are songs that I find to be personally more heavy, but I think for general ears, this is probably going to be the heaviest Aawks song, and this is probably my most psychedelic song.
I agree with that.
I think there wasn't necessarily an intentionality, but I think when you're working together, you start to assimilate some of each other's ideas and strategies towards, especially the songwriting aspect.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of curious about, is that I mean, you guys are going into this knowing that it's a split, maybe not knowing that it's, one song each, or that they're going to be 10-minute songs or anything like that, but you know that it's going to be a split. And there has to be part of your brain that starts trying to kind of match the other band, at least, like you don't want them to be wildly different. You're not going to play black metal if they're playing, stoner rock, and that wouldn't be a very cohesive split necessarily. So like, I just wonder how much of your brain kind of goes like, I need to, meet them halfway or something like that.
I think part of what happened was, once we decided that is, I don't remember whether it was Chris or I that was like, let's have a concept. I don't think
we actually ever really came up with I don't think we realized it was a concept until after, to be honest. I mean, I think we decided to write a Beck Blavatsky, but Sorry, my dog's licking my bowl. But I didn't really consider it to be a concept until after the song was written. Songs were written. So it's funny because to me, sometimes when I hear concept, I think, oh, pretentious. But you know, I don't think it is necessarily. I think it's just that we wanted a cohesive thing to write about because we kind of jive and dig a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to like look at lyrics, and we've kind of talked about that a few times, how, you know, lyrics kind of come second in some of this. We listen to the music first and the feeling of it and all that kind of stuff. Lyrically, how important was Blavatsky to writing lyrics to this music? Did it
Essential.
Yeah.
I mean, my entire song is just like, here are some of Blavatsky's themes. Now it was kind of easy for me to do that because I'm so used to talking about things through the lens of Thelema. But I was like, let's challenge myself to do something a little different. So it still has that personal edge to it if you really dive into the lyrics on my end, but I was like, let's talk about her ideas, you know, and I can use her ideas to talk about what's on my mind.
Gotcha.
And for me, lyrics are sometimes they fall into your lap, and they're very thorough. Sometimes it's more a stream of consciousness and abstract and you know, symbolic. And I think for me, for our version, our side of the split, it was more of surreal stuff. Sorry, my dog's being a pain in the ass right now. Jesus.
If I see a dog's butthole on this podcast, I'm going to be upset.
So I didn't know much about Blavatsky when I started writing the song, and as I was writing it, I was reading and reading and reading. So it's very all over the map. I was reading about her childhood. I was reading about some of the concepts that she had come up with, some of the stories, you know, true or not, some of these outlandish stories that you hear about her. And all of it kind of came together in the lyrics that we ended up with. So
we definitely focused on her journey.
Yeah. Part of it is about I think overall the theme of our song is about the journey in her life, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
the name of your song is 1831, correct? Is that right. when she was born, or was that something else?
That was her IQ, actually.
Nope.
No, I'm just kidding. No, that she was born. She's a super genius.
Sorry, I'm having a meltdown right now.
Yeah, so no, she was born 1831 in what was Russia is now Ukraine.
Okay. Very topical.
Well, it is. It's funny because Randy's part Ukrainian, and we've been following all of this stuff over there. And I wouldn't say we're anywhere near a political band or a social commentary type band, but you know, we do, you know, like anyone who's conscientious these days, follow that stuff. And you know, I think it all kind of has come together in a serendipitous type of way. A lot of synchronicity that we discussed on Pat's podcast as well, but some really weird, odd things. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it was just cool to have that happen.
So if we could shift gears just a tad to like gear and some of the technical information. I know some of the people on our podcast like to talk about some of that stuff that I don't quite understand. But you kind of touched on having some guests from Indian handcrafts and a violin and things like that. But is there anything musically that maybe you wouldn't hear on first pass listening to this that you want to share, whether it's effects, pedals, guest spots, extra instruments, anything like that people should know?
I mean, for me, the maybe the most essential pedal in terms of creating the sound that I was looking for, especially on the bridge, it's a pedal called a Keeley Dark Side. I was listening to just a fuck ton of Pink Floyd at this time, and I was like, I wonder how that would go with Doom. And so I did a trade with a friend for a pedal. He had the Dark Side, so I traded him one, and it's essentially the only song I've ever used it on, but I'm pretty happy about it. And I couldn't have gotten a lot of the sounds on my song without that pedal. So yeah.
Cool.
And for me, I was really trying to get that kind of low mid-range, like warbly fuzz, not warbly fuzz, but it was like a woolly fuzz. It's a woolly fuzz sound that I was trying to get, kind of a la Windhand or a bit of Monolord. So I was using a Frost Giant massive pedal, which is a very mids forward one knob fuzz pedal. That's modeled after the Color Sound one knob fuzz from the 70s. So it's modded a little bit in that it's a bit kind of more
Burly.
I guess. But it's a massive pedal, and that's why it's called the Massive. And then also one really cool kind of thing is that an uncle who passed away left me a bunch of instruments, and there's an analog organ sound on this album. It's an old Lowry organ that you'd find in someone's basement maybe in the 60s. And it has never been cleaned. The thing's full of dust. It's got the original tubes in it, and it has this beautiful warm analog organ sound. So that kind of pops up in the murk of the song. Our song is quite dense. It's a lot more dense than anything we've ever done. So I was trying to get a wall of sound kind of thing going on. I guess that would speak to more of the Aiwass, giant, big doom sound that we were going for. So I wanted to kind of add in a lot of those organ-like timbres to get it to sound so big and woolly. And
yeah, there's like a drone element to both songs, I would say. We're not going for trying to sound like Sun or Earth or anything like that. But when you're tackling a more spiritual type of theme, I think that you end up a little bit influenced by that, in terms of the fact that you're like, all right, if I'm talking about a spiritual concept, I should be putting myself into a spiritual place while I'm working on this.
There's definitely a few beats or moments or pieces that are almost trance-like. And I attribute a lot of that to that, like you were saying, going into that kind of spiritual realm, that kind of like psychedelic, really it's not even fuzzed out. It's just, there's just a lot of like, what do you call that? That like almost hymn. Like there's a tone in there that when you're listening and it comes in and you feel it and it sticks with you throughout the song. And yeah, so it's kind of trance-like for me.
I was listening to a lot of Conan, Monolord, Windhand, kind of like those bigger, woollier sounding bands at the time. So I don't know if the influence can really be heard, but I'm sure it probably comes through. And then, like Blake, I listen to a lot of Floyd all the time. I'm a huge Floyd nut.
You started and I think ended with a couple samples of some audio too. Where did that come from?
That was from a movie called, I believe, is it The Daughter of Horror? God, I'd have to look that up. I should know that. It's been a little while since I've looked at that. But it was originally a silent movie from the 60s, black and white horror film about this woman's descent into madness. The original one was silent, and then they put out a second version, I guess, because maybe it didn't do well. That was narrated, and that's from the narrator. So yeah, it's from, I believe it's called The Daughter of Horror, which you can find online for free. It's a royalty-free, if you can go on these sites that have royalty-free movies, music, and all sorts of stuff like that, and I found it there.
Awesome. So real quick, I know that we'll talk about it on the Fuzz Club episode, and you talked about it a little bit with Pat. The artwork was by someone by the name of Daria Belial. Is that correct? Billick. I can't read my own handwriting, but she goes by Dashi, I believe.
Correct.
So I like Pat and probably everyone else. I thought that was a painting. It turns out to be a photograph, but it's amazing. I love it. And I looked through her work a little bit. Really cool stuff. It matches the vibe of the album and the subject matter and everything. So what can you tell us about the artwork?
It was immediate love at first sight for myself. Yeah. There was something to be said about that stylized version that she had of a woman on the plains on a journey There's this beautiful red flowing dress and this like headdress, and something really spoke to me to the idea of like a mystical kind of trail, right? So Blavatsky left her mark around the world and left her mark with a lot of people, and this woman was leaving her trail, her mark along the way. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful photo. I couldn't get it out of my head, and thankfully the guys loved it, and it really became the staple mark. And it's so expressively simple and exactly what it needed.
Yeah, it's spot on. I mean, after listening to the album and talking to you guys about it, looking at the concept, and it's great artwork for it. I loved it a lot.
Yeah, and what was really cool was we we went back and forth on a few different artists in this process, and we just always kept coming back to her work.
If anyone else is looking for some album artwork, I mean, she's got lots of photos that would be great album covers.
They're brilliant. They're really
in
brilliant.
this genre of music, she could cross through up and down into so many different bands, kind of sounds, and it just really speaks like in such a beautiful way. And like you said, go through her catalog and you would be just like, like there's some good stuff.
This we'll give you an exclusive on this one. We actually used 3 of her photos that you get if you purchase the vinyl. It comes with an insert, and essentially it as I recall, I might be wrong on this, I think we were most attracted to the one that we ended up with on the cover. But we had 3 photos that we pretty much were all in love with, and so we used 2 of them for the insert, one on each side for each band, and each band was allowed to kind of choose which one they most felt drawn to based on their song. Nice. So it's a full package that you get of really high quality art.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great.
One cool thing about the cover model, she reached out to us because we had attached Dashi to one of the posts, and she's like, "Hey, that's me." And I said, "Yeah, sure it is." But then she confirmed it was her. She goes by erotic_purity. Her name is Rachel, but
that's also what I go by.
Yeah, that's right. She let us know that she made the headdress that's on the cover, the tree that's coming out of her head. She actually crafted that, which is nice. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. And
all right, so
Scotland, if I'm not mistaken. Which is interesting. I just realized this. So I got to say this. So the Devil's Witches album that came out last year that we all loved. I just loved the fact. I love that photo so much. And when Blake and I were, talking about the concept, we're like, yeah, that Devil's Witches album looks so wicked. So it was kind of, we were inspired to use Dashi's stuff. And I believe he's in Scotland as well. So there's some Scottish connection there.
And Crowley had a house in Scotland.
It all comes together.
So is there anything else that you would like to share with the Fuzz Club, I guess specifically, but also just anyone else watching this episode that you think they should know before checking this album out, or maybe after, and to consider while listening to it, or anything?
Definitely listen in. Go look her up and grab a couple of facts, true, false, in or out, whatever you believe, but then listen. Go listen, then go listen. And it's really amazing because I got to do what I did, and then hearing the test pressing, like the goosebumps were immediate and intense, and it did not stop because our songs are extra long. And Blake, I was listening to yours like 4 times yesterday, and the feeling didn't change. And it doesn't have to do with the song itself. It's the full experience. It's a full body experience for me.
Yeah, I think that we had discussed this of how we couldn't think of another split that was a concept album, and it's not just the theme, it's not just the lyrics that are talking about the same stuff. It really creates kind of a cohesive listening experience, to where I think that if you listen to one song without listening to the other, you're kind of depriving yourself of some of the meaning of what we're going for. That I didn't even really fully grasp that until I had listen to the test press on my turntable. So, you know, if you're a fan of one of us, excellent, awesome. I'm a huge fan of Aawks. You know, listen to their song if you want to listen to mine, but really listen to the split as a whole the first time, because you're going to get a lot more out of it that way, and that's something we were going for.
I gotta say that there's plenty of splits out there that just feel like a marketing thing, you know, like for the price of one, you get these two bands. Here you go, and it's like this collection of songs, and you're like, okay, it just seems like this like marketing thing, and this is definitely more than that. It's like this idea that you both collaborated on and created this new thing out of it. It wasn't a collection of your songs that you put together and sold as a split. It's this brand new thing, and to me, you know, that says a lot. That's the best way to do it. And as just a fan of music, I mean, then I'm interested. You know, you did it right. I think that it's a very cool concept, and the subject matter and just the combination of both bands and the artwork and everything. I think it's very cool, and it's very well done. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
So where should someone start if they're interested in learning more about Helena Blavatsky?
So the book that we kind of used as our kind of textbook of sorts is actually by a guy named Gary Lachman, Lachman, who is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was the original, I believe, bassist. He's either bassist or guitarist for Blondie. And he was one of the main songwriters for kind of their early into their kind of when they really broke it big. And then he eventually left the band and became a writer about different occult texts. And
she wrote stuff though too, yeah?
She did. So her two biggest works, quite literally biggest, are Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine. They're extremely dense and extremely hard to read, but they're really rewarding if you can get through them.
I tried to read some other stuff that you recommended. I don't know if you're
this
saying
is much harder than anything I've ever recommended you. I really.
All right, I'll have to start somewhere else, I think. But
this guy just read Ulysses. Like, I tried to read that book 15 times and I can't get through it.
yeah, no, I don't think.
Second half is brilliant. First half is pretty rough.
I was extremely confused by the Crowley stuff that I was trying to read at one point.
Yeah, Blavatsky makes Crowley seem like easy reading.
All right. Any last words that you want to share with anybody?
I just I know not everyone's got the patience to listen to a 15-minute long or 14-minute long song, but I think it would help if you could maybe, like Randy said, read through, envision what's going on, and then kind of go on a mental movie journey type thing with her. I think that would help.
Yeah, I mean, have the insert out while you're listening to it, because we are trying to actually say something, you know. Like, yeah. I know, especially for me, like on my first album, I was trying to say stuff, but I didn't know how to say it. And I've grown as a songwriter, and I think that I'm actually saying things, and you can pick up on them now. And I think I can say the same thing about the song that Aawks contributed as well.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a snob about it. If you got to go to Wikipedia, go to Wikipedia, get a couple of things, get some ideas flowing. You're going to want to think about it. You're going to want to feel it. If there's other psychedelics involved, enjoy yourself. There's some good sounds in there.
Yeah. Well said. All right. Thanks, guys.
Don't be salty.
So we are on to the Fuzz Club portion of the Aawks Aiwass split episode. We'll just go through some quick intros and we'll kind of get into the music a little bit. Scott, do you want to lead us off?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I'm Scott. I'm the chief writer and editor over at Clean and Sober Stoner.
Right.
I'm Ryan from High Desert Queen and Lick of My Spoon Productions.
Eddie.
I'm Eddy from The Endless and Lords of the Opium Church.
Bucky Brown with Doom Charts, The Ripple Effect.
And I'm Pat from Monster Riff.
All right. So we are talking about the Eastern Scrolls. this album is going to come out in August, end of August 25th, I believe, is the date. And this includes our friends from the Fuzz Club, Aawks and Aiwass, who are frequent contributors to the Fuzz Club. So it was cool to get them kind of interviewed and talk about some of the background on this and listen to it from that perspective. And now, they've joined forces. And now we get to talk behind their backs and talk shit about them or whatever we want. Here's our opportunity. They're not on this episode. It's just us. I'm sure they won't listen.
I was curious if they were going to be on here or not. So this is going to be good.
Yeah. So I guess first things first, it's a kind of a concept. It's about Madame Helena Blavatsky, who was a Russian mystic. And there's a whole bunch more about her in that interview portion about kind of her thoughts and her writings and all that kind of stuff. We don't have to get into it too much, but it was really interesting for me that the whole split was dedicated to her. I mean, it was a subject matter that they were both kind of reading about and came together and wrote these two long epic songs about to create this 2-song split. Any thoughts on that? Did anyone do any background on her and see how that tied into the music or lyrically or anything like that?
Yeah, I did a short episode with them as well, and we talked a lot about her. And it was really cool, especially to get Randy's perspective on things, because Madame Blavatsky was obviously a woman in a period where women were like second-class citizens everywhere. And she was super progressive and really, really intelligent and would just do whatever the fuck she wanted. Whatever culture called for it, that was not what she was going to do. I think she even often dressed up as a man, and so she could go and do things like, I think she even fought in a battle or in war or something like that. So she was super hardcore. And so it was really cool to get Randy's perspective on things as a woman in a space that is highly male dominated. Even the Fuzz Club is mostly just dudes, right? And so she,
not for lack of trying, by the way.
Right. You have tried very hard. And there are people on the email list that are females as well that just don't show up. But
I'm sure our audience is primarily women. I'm sure.
Just old ladies.
Just as the fans at all these underground dive bar shows are mostly women too, right?
Of course.
And I know we're very hot on the 21 to 27 demographic.
Big time.
Single.
Big time. Paparazzi's crazy around here, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely, just listening to it, I knew exactly what the concept was without even reading up on it. I knew who this girl, being sarcastic, I would have had no clue. I mean, it does sound like it, both songs kind of roll together and it has that concept vibe to it. But I as a listener, I get nothing as far as where it came from or what it is without knowing the backstory and reading up on it. It kind of like a lot of concept albums. Like, do you really follow along or are you just listening to the tunes?
Yeah. Right. I mean, lyrically, I couldn't always understand the lyrics or anything like that in either one of the songs, but talking to them and asking them kind of about the lyrical, inspiration and stuff, it sounded like it was really important to the writing of the songs, and it wasn't their typical subject matter to write about, but it did inspire even the lyrics, and they were writing about kind of stuff that she believed in and kind of put themselves into the music through her and her eyes. So I thought that was cool, and it does really carry that concept throughout then, even lyrically, not just inspirationally, but it is talking about some of her thoughts and things and stuff that she wrote about.
And I think you get a little bit of it in the music as well. Like Aawks has that really cool sort of, I don't know if it's a bridge. They have a really long section in the second half that sounds a little bit like Tool, but you can hear a little bit of an Eastern influence in there as well that you probably wouldn't have heard in just a typical Aawks song.
Yeah, it's a departure, right? And it's funny because I am familiar with the Madame. I when I heard the name, I was like, that sounds familiar, but I didn't really think about it until I remembered it was the Theosophy. I had learned about that. I kind of went a whole religion trip for a long time, and that she was one of the founders of that. But I was so far behind, I've been on the road, and then I was like, oh, episode's tomorrow. I want to check out this record. I think I asked Ryan to send it to me, the link again. And I started it yesterday, and I put it on at the gym. I didn't read anything back, no background. And so I was, because I know I always appreciate that's one of Ryan's criteria, how well it does in the gym. And so that was my first take on it. I'm trying to get back in shape, which is not easy after all the beer drinking for 6 weeks on the road.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
So it was brutal. So I was like, I might hate this record because I'm going to be in agony right now. But it was cool, and it definitely takes you on a trip. And being familiar with Aawks, I immediately was like, this does not sound like what they've done. And I think it's because I caught on to that second part of that song that Pat was alluding to.
They both mentioned in that interview that it's arguably like the heaviest Aawks has ever sounded, and arguably maybe the most psychedelic that Aiwass has ever sounded. So there was kind of this like where they would kind of aim towards each other and meet in the middle somewhere, you know, musically, which I thought was cool and helped that make the split a little bit more cohesive.
And I think it was a great blend because I remember about halfway through, I started realizing, wait, this doesn't sound like what I'm used to with Aawks, but I'm digging it. And then, but I knew what to expect. So now I'm paying attention, and Aiwass track comes on, and I've listened to Aiwass. I was waiting for that heavy, super doom. And it wasn't, I mean, it was still very heavy, but not as heavy as what they've done in the past. And I think it was cool because I think they were both striving for that concept, you know, like I mean, it's a concept record. And then going back and refreshing my memory on theosophy and the basis of the religion and things was kind of cool. Because then it makes me go listen to it again and try to find those things, and it kind of makes you more of an active listener. For you know, because me as a songwriter, having a concept, that's so cool because that would just give me this idea of like what I need to write and grow it. So I was kind of listening to see what they did with it. Yeah. I was impressed. I didn't like Ryan said, I didn't understand the lyrics every single time, right? But there'd be something I'd catch on to, and I would probably, even if they didn't mean to make something out of that, I made something out of it based on the fact it's a concept record, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was really impressed too by both songs, and I did a little bit of research before I listened to them. Like I went on YouTube and tried to get some kind of background, and then when I listened to the Aawks song, like it just blew me away because you can tell they reached really deep and trying to find some new inspirations, and you could really tell that there's a lot going on there that they just explored, and it came out really well. Same with
and you probably, Eddie, I don't know, I was marveling at the guitar tone.
Oh man, the tone is crazy. Yeah.
It's so fuzzy and thick on both tracks, but the first guitar tone on Aawks, I go, oh, okay, this is going to be a good gym song. I like this. Fuzzy.
All I could think about was Electric Wizard.
It had that thick sound. I wonder if they, you know, I don't know what they used on that, of course, but it's not.
We talked about it a little bit on the interview
or something.
We talked a little bit on the interview part, and I don't remember if he said exactly what they were using, but he was going for like that wind hand type of like buzz, and then Blake went into a pedal. I don't remember the name of the pedal specifically, but he was listening to a lot of Pink Floyd and used that pedal, like traded someone for that pedal to use on this, which he's never used before. So there is a little bit about that in the interview part, but where they got that sound from.
That's awesome. This is one of my I've been looking forward to this one since I heard it, because like my favorite album of this century is Bucky might know it, Turn to Stone Chapter 2, which was Masamune and Muramasa. And Aawks, I've always put them in, like, if I'm in a good mood, I want to listen to Aawks because it's going to be fun and it's going to be. So I put this on, and just the heaviness of that song. I'm getting ready to text Blake and go, wow, this is the heaviest thing you've ever written. And thankfully I didn't. And then, you know, the Aiwass comes in, and it took me right to metal era Pink Floyd, not derivative, but real similar. He's got that real.
It did.
I think this is brilliant. I think it's going to do for Aawks what Turn to Stone Chapter 2 did for Howling Giant, because it made them tighter, better, heavier. And Aiwass, it's my song of the year so far. I cannot tell you how much I love that song, but it was very confusing. It's like they switched identities, and that was a great move on their part.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Chapter 2, because I was thinking a lot about like that pairing where they went into like that deep concept.
Yeah.
to when they put that together. And yes, I'm very familiar with it. I was the one who paired those bands up. So
Yeah,
I got those guys. I got those guys on board, and they just took that split and ran with it. Like they did all the creative, like everything about that was. I think it was Sergeant Thunderhoof who initiated it, and then they worked together to. And I think theirs was like 20-minute songs.
Oh yeah,
it was one just like this one. This one's 14 minutes and like 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's similar. It's that long song. I mean, it goes in and out, very diverse. It's not just one sound the whole time. And I was going to ask. I didn't know if Blake or Aawks was going to be on the show tonight, but if the production, and maybe you guys know, would this come out as a 45 if it's on a one disc? Because that's only going to take up about a little over half of the vinyl. So
I thought that it was.
It's probably at 45, right?
Yeah, I thought they talked about doing something smaller and then went with this maybe afterwards. I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask, but I thought that it was.
Well, yeah. Either way, it's cool. So in that guitar tone on Aawks, right at about 2 minutes, it just hits that crunchy guitar. That's
really when that's when it hit me.
I was like, oh shit! Like now we're talking, and then
I loved Chris's vocals on this. I think part of what made their first album so fun was his vocals. It's sort of light and fits really well into like that party doom that they play, but he just sounds so heavy, and they did so much to his voice. Yeah, so
really
cool.
dark.
Now, Ryan, did they ever say? I mean, are they going to pivot to this direction more? Or do you think, or is this a one-off? They went to the depths of doom, and what do you think is going to happen
for Aawks? I don't envision them going like this direction forever, although I know they listen to this type of music. I mean, Chris is a big fan of Electric Wizard and all that kind of stuff, so maybe get heavier and heavier. But I know for Blake, he's taking a different approach to his music going forward, so I think this is it's more in line with maybe the direction he's heading in the future.
Yeah, well, it's a cool prelude because it got psychedelic, like very psyche, right? And I thought what he did on his vocals too was super cool because it has that Pink Floyd-esque, but it's it's not going to sound. It's just it's just a vibe, of the vocals, and super dark and layered and kind of danced around and took. It was the whole mood that both of these guys tried to create was awesome. I thought, and I tried to listen to it as an unbiased person. These are friends of ours, right? And it's not like I was going to get ready to tear it apart, but there's really nothing I can tear apart. Only complaint I have is what I complain about with every split. Not long enough. Even the one I'm on, not long enough.
It's not long enough.
Yeah, so I get it.
Yeah. So Ryan, and maybe some of you have been on splits or know a little bit about splits and stuff just in general. But I mean, when you did your split with Blue Heron, I mean, you guys had a collection of songs and you paired them with Blue Heron songs and you put out a split with them. This going into it as two bands like writing material almost together, almost collaborative. I mean, they aren't on each other's songs or anything necessarily, but I mean, what are your thoughts on like that concept is like working together to finish a split as opposed to like, we have our songs, you have yours, let's put them out together. Like, I thought it was really cool. I think that like going in there with a concept in mind and writing almost together, like was just really cool idea.
I think this is the way a split should be done. Concept. I regret that ours wasn't. It was, I mean, Jad from Blue Heron wanted it to be a concept. He's like, hey, this is the idea you had. I was like, that's awesome. And we actually got in a practice space to start recording, and we didn't get in the studio. There's no way. We started touring too much, and it was like, hey, we have these 3 songs, and luckily they kind of fit, and we complement each other well, so that worked. But hindsight, I would have loved to do exactly what they did, what Aawks and Aiwass did, because to me, that's what a cool split is about. I don't think they were derived that way. I mean, talking to Jad, even who he didn't invent the split, but he was instrumental in bringing bands like Nebula and Lowrider and stuff like that on splits, and they didn't write together, but there's just songs like, hey, I think you'd be cool with these guys, and go. But man, very cool to be able to do what they did with this split, having a concept and writing both. Hey, agreeing on a concept and then both writing about it. And I'm curious. I don't know if they mentioned in the interview. Were they sharing ideas with each other, or was it like, here's what we did? Oh, here's what we did. Oh, cool. This is perfect.
I think that just in general, they share ideas back and forth. I mean, they're good friends and stuff, but I don't know that was
That's where
part
I'd
of
wanna do
like
it.
the actual process. I don't know that they like wrote and compared and took notes and that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think that that's probably just part of their process, just in general.
Yeah. Well, they nailed it. And I think that's that's what a split, maybe we'll see more of this, going forward, this idea of people. I mean, it's happened before. It's not like a first time thing, but I think that as a songwriter, the ability to kind of step away from yourself, you find new things about yourself. Like Scott was mentioning, asking if Aawks is going to go this direction or Blake, they might be, so because they discover something about themselves.
I was almost curious when I first heard them like announce it, if they were going to go like the direction of what was it, Elder and Cadaver. They like made a new group together, basically Eldevar or whatever. And like basically that was
right?
it was basically like a split like / collaborative super group type of thing, like all in one. And that would have been kind of cool. Aawks, Aiwass band together, to make maybe it wouldn't have been much different. They write different songs, but they kind of came in the middle here.
The Aawks.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? That might be part of their master plan.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? I mean, stuff like that is awesome. I love it when bands collaborate like that, and that's I've been working a lot to try to do something similar with several bands, and hopefully it comes together. But it's not the easiest thing to do, especially with they're in Canada, Blake's in Austin. But it's cool with technology. You can do it now, I suppose. But it is interesting that they were sharing ideas, because to me that's so cool. That's cool because it kind of each get a feel for like what's going on,
Yeah, and I think splits in general work both ways. I mean, so like what they did, it's probably less common to work together like that as a concept. But like your split, it's almost like a bill. You put bands together on a bill, and here's the two bands. This is what they don't have to really. You pair them up to be kind of compatible in some way, kind of like a bill, like going to a show.
Trying to get people who hadn't heard us but have heard of Blue Heron, and vice versa.
And
check it out and
get the exposure out there. New bands, I know with Ripple, that's kind of a lot of these series splits are about getting some like more unknown bands up and giving them an opportunity to get their name out.
And to me, it like grows the family. Like I love about it. So I'm already in the Ripple family, but now I'm on the Turn to Stone family, right? There's so we're in that. So it's cool. There's definitely some value in splits, and I think I like what Ripple's doing with those, and I'm glad we're seeing splits like this happen. It's pretty unique. I do hope to do a split at some point with someone where we collaborate like Aawks and Aiwass did. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
How about the artwork? Did they talk a little bit about that? Like it's pretty sick. Like I dig the artwork.
Me too.
Yeah. Pat, do you want to share anything about it while I bring it up? I know that you talked about it a little bit.
I will say, for me, I thought it was a painting. I had seen it a bunch on Instagram and even on the website, and I was for sure this was a painting. But this is a photograph, and it is super cool. And it's not. When they found it, it was just kind of serendipity, because they felt like it fit perfectly for the concept that they have. But I'll hand it over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, so she goes by Dashi. Her name is Daria, but she goes by Dashi. And yeah, like they said, long dress, and they had like the twigs and branches to make like this crown. It's a photograph, but we said this in the interview. But if you are looking for album art, she has a huge catalog of material on her Instagram and stuff that would work amazingly well for any album. Really impressive stuff, really cool, and great concepts and composition and everything else. So it was really cool.
Do they involve her in the photos?
I don't think so. There are a lot of women in the photos, but I don't recall if that's like exclusive to what she does.
And that's assuming that this Daria or Dashi is this person here.
That I don't even know. I'm not even sure.
Okay, just speaking about the photographer in general. Okay.
Is the photo supposed to symbolize the Madame or whatever that the album's about? Did you say that?
Well, yeah, I think that's the concept that they took into it. It was like, and you'd have to listen to the interview part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Randy even went into kind of like the symbolism of like the crown and the red dress and all that kind of stuff. But I think this was a photo that she had taken, obviously before, the split or anything like that. But yeah, I believe that they kind of interpreted it that way, and I think that it just fit really, really well with the whole concept.
Yeah,
cool.
It ironically, it looks like a high desert queen, Ryan. It's like the landscape's definitely like high desert, like landscape. Yeah.
And that's why I was asking about who this photographer is. I'm already intrigued.
Yeah. You should definitely check out her other work on Instagram. Yeah. It would all work for great album covers, like really impressive album covers.
That's a super cool photo.
Yeah, and I believe that they said that there's 2 other of her photographs included in the vinyl. So if anyone wants to go check out the vinyl, you get more artwork involved in the purchase. So.
Yeah, I thought it was a painting until I zoomed in.
Same. I think everyone has that feeling. Yeah, it's just such a like surreal looking image that definitely get that.
And it's up for pre-order right now, right? Black Throne Productions.
Black Throne Productions is putting it out. Yep, it's out officially August 25th, but pre-order. Yeah, go check it out. Go grab one.
I'm looking at it right now. There's 3 colors.
Yeah, I got mine already.
Nice.
Nice.
Do you have our Instagram handle?
I didn't write it down, but Dashi is spelled Dashie.
Okay, I'll find it.
Yeah, you should be able to find her there. If not, let me know. Maybe I'll put it up, in the credits here or something. But yeah, really, really cool stuff.
Yep, found it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about this split that we should talk about? Musically, lyrically, inspirationally, anything?
Yeah, it's not something that like you personally would like listen to a lot. I mean, it's definitely in that style of music that's not like my go-to, but for like the concept, the art, the whole thing behind it, it makes it really cool, a cool listen. And both bands it's accessible. Like even if you're not into that kind of music, the heavy doomy kind of stuff, it's pretty accessible in general.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I really dig concept records that are, I guess, kind of like this one in the sense that they take you on a journey. I feel that's what a concept record is supposed to do, and this one does. And of course, I already love music that does that. Kind of had some of that Mesa feel here and there, and different bands that we've kind of been talking about on here that I could hear some different things that just the soundscape that they created is cool. And I could easily, I mean, I listened to it in the gym today, and that was and it worked to pass that test, which is cool. But I look forward to like putting this on while I'm either zoning out or even put it in the background and then feel myself probably jamming to it while I'm doing something. I think it's going to be a good record for that for sure.
I had it on today at work in my office, and it was pretty loud in my office, and it's definitely not like the work friendly. Like, so like my boss was walking by down the hall, and I'm like, I kind of turned it down a little bit just when people were kind of walking around, like they're going to be like, what's this guy listening to? It probably didn't sound that great from out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck's going on?
Bucky's having a bad day over there.
Yeah, it's real somber. What's going on, man? Gotta make sure Bucky's all right.
Yeah. So
work
friendly, but not work friendly.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I don't know if people take splits as seriously as like full albums, but maybe I haven't in the past. But when I listened to this, I was just like completely blown away. And it's not just because they're my buddies and we're on the Fuzz Club together. But this is amazing. Those 2 songs are awesome. I can't wait to share it.
Yeah, I think to that point, and we kind of touched on it already, but I mean, just the fact that that they're very cohesive songs. They're about the same thing. They, kind of went in different directions to meet each other a little bit. Like, I think that it might get a little bit more recognition as like a concept album rather than a split album. People might look at it a little bit differently as like a whole package.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like one album. It's cohesive. You almost don't even need to say split. Like the Eastern Scrolls. Like,
yeah,
because you
they
don't
should
know.
have just called this new band the Eastern Scrolls.
That's a good name.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that we've said it. I think that it's going to be a good episode. The interview first here, and then the discussion around it. I think that everyone should go check out the Eastern Scrolls. We'll wrap it up there. If anyone wants to, what do you think they're up to?
It just sucks that without them here, we had a perfect opportunity to just rip them to shreds. They had to write a freaking good album. Dang it!
Yeah,
they had a chance to really get them on this one.
They were probably a little nervous.
Maybe
are right now. Like, what are they saying?
I don't remember who it was. It might have been Chris or Randy that they suggested maybe like a roast episode, and I would be all for that.
Heck yeah.
Go back and pretend that we just roasted them the whole time and don't ever know what comes out.
That would be funny. Yeah,
we got to message them that hey, I'm just going to apologize for all that was said on the episode, but remember, no hard feelings. That's what we do.
No hard feelings.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, lead us off. Tell us what you're up to.
And by the way, just so you know, I can't hear any. It's might be in my signal, so you might want to edit this part out. I just wrote up my longest piece ever on the band Acid King. Getting a lot of positive cleanandsoberstoner.com, and I would appreciate it if people would give that a little browse. I go over the whole discography and a little bit of the history, so that's my latest.
Cool. Ryan.
Awesome. And speaking of Acid King, I've got them coming to Ripple Fest, which I'm pretty excited about. We're less than 3 months away. That's going to be such an incredible festival. I'm really happy with the lineup from top to bottom is stacked, and a lot of good bands and good friends that'll be there. So that's going to be a great festival in September, which won't be quite as hot too. So it'll be nice. And then on the High Desert Queen side, we just wrapped a long 6-week tour, and like idiots, we're going back on tour. Short one though, 2 weeks. We just announced today a brewery and dive tour, which we're going to film a documentary of we're beer hounds, and we'll be taking tours of breweries and several along the way. So a 3-hour drive from town to town might turn into a much longer drive. But we'll be videoing us tasting the beer and at the venue doing interviews and stuff, and it's going to be fun. And but more exciting, we just wrapped 90% of our second record in the studio. I've got to go back and do some vocals. We recorded everything live in the studio with no click tracks, no punch-ins. We were like, hey, we're going old school. We just did 34 shows in 36 days. We felt like we were tight enough to do that. So
nice. Wow. Awesome.
We're very, very, very happy with how it sounds. And writing 3 new songs in there too. So it was pretty cool. We're excited about it.
I can't wait for the Fuzz Club on that, and won't be invited to the Fuzz Club recording.
Yeah, that'll be a roast. It's all right.
Bucky, what are you up to?
Doomcharts.com. The June charts drop tomorrow, and I mean, you guys know what that's all about. Half you guys on the Fuzz Club are part of the contributors to the Doom charts, so that comes out the first Friday of every month. And check me out. I run the Doom Charts Twitter page. I'm on there every now and then. I'm not too active, but you can find me on there and on Instagram and Bandcamp. Follow me on Bandcamp. That's where I've been hanging out for decades since Bandcamp started. So
right on. Eddy.
Nothing really new. Just the Endless has that gig on July 22nd at Black Bar, and we're going to the studio in 1 month.
Awesome.
Pat.
The Monster Riff hiatus is almost over. It took some time off, for preparation for my son to get here, but He was born on Sunday. Things are going smoother than I expected, but maybe that'll be short-lived. So hopefully by the end of July, we'll be back to publishing regularly again. I will say I have been 100% out of the loop in new music. I've been just like listening to like a bunch of stuff I listened to like in college and in high school the past month or so. So if anybody wants to send me stuff that they're excited about that's come out recently, like I haven't even read the Doom charts in the last couple months. So anything that anybody is super jazzed about, you think I should review, feel free to send it along.
Cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
You heard of
All
the
right.
band We Hunt Buffalo?
Never. Who are they?
Yeah.
All right, go check out the Eastern Scrolls. It's out August 25th. So if you don't have access to it, go hit the pre-order and check it out on August 25th.
It's worth it.
Later.
See you guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah.